Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hi, I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm joined today by Jessica Ringena, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at Hy-Vee. Thanks for joining me today, Jessica.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today.
So for those in our audience to get started that might not be familiar with Hy-Vee, would you want to tell us a little bit about the company?
Sure. We are a grocery retailer located here in the Midwest. So we're headquartered in Iowa and located in the 7 states surrounding Iowa. So very regionally located. In addition to just being a grocery retailer, we also have many extended services that we offer for all of our customers. So a strong presence in the health and wellness pharmacy space with dietitians and other health and wellness offerings, along with food service. So 214 locations with different food service offerings, along with additional floral design shops and full bakeries, and really kind of a one-stop shop when it comes to all those lifestyle needs as it relates to grocery and food, and an extension of grocery and food and health and wellness. We have today over 265 locations in 8 different states, and those locations range from anywhere small on the small side, call it 20,000 square feet, up to almost 100,000 square feet. So quite a variety and diversity depending on the market that we serve.
And how about you, your particular background? Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Hy-Vee?
Sure. So I'm actually a CPA by trade. So I'm an accountant, and I worked for 14 years in public accounting. Hy-Vee was actually a client. So I joined the Hy-Vee team 5 years ago in the accounting space, worked for a couple of years as the corporate controller. And then as time moved on, kind of peeled off into more of a business strategy and innovation role, looking to really help with new projects and new initiatives that the company was undertaking as we looked for growth and diversity. And about 2 years ago, I joined our IT technology space, and really focusing with our web and mobile and our digital teams in creating customer-facing digital properties and digital properties for our employees. So overseeing the teams that help develop our website and our mobile apps, and then really looking at our digital marketing and our customer insights team. So the loyalty program that we have today is operated underneath my team, and we're really looking at giving our customers the benefit and the tools and communication that come from having that loyalty program in place.
So I'm going to get into some of those digital offerings in a little bit, but let's start with the fact that as an essential retailer, grocery retailer in Hy-Vee, you've obviously been open throughout your stores have been open throughout the pandemic. So let's start there and talk about some of the challenges that the company has faced, particularly in its stores over the last 3-4 months.
Sure. So obviously, completely unprecedented times, and I hear people use that word all the time, but there's no better way to describe it. So as the pandemic kind of came to life in the middle of March, it really became evident that communication was going to be key during this entire process. So our executive leadership team, our senior leadership team, was meeting on a daily and weekly basis to really talk about current state of the union. Because really, as you start looking at the landscape, and we only operate in 8 states, but all of those 8 states had different laws and different regulations and different rules that were coming to fruition hourly. And then you take it even beyond the state level, it comes down to the city and the municipality level. So as we looked to really figure out how to navigate this situation, we kept top of mind our customer safety and our employee safety. So that was really kind of the anchor that we kind of kept going back to as we made these decisions. But ultimately it came down to communication. So it really did boil down to daily, hourly calls if necessary to really start navigating some of the changes that came on because of the COVID pandemic.
So let's take a look about some of those changes. Maybe there are specific examples that you might be able to cite in terms of what has changed in terms of the in-store shopping experience at any of the Hy-Vee stores in the last few months, and then talk a little bit about who was involved in those decisions. What type of collaboration internally. You mentioned almost daily and hourly calls at some point. Tell us a little about kind of the structure and who was involved in making those decisions.
Sure. So those decisions really were happening at the senior leadership level. So our executive vice presidents, senior vice presidents, down to our store directors, which have an incredible amount of input and autonomy within our Hy-Vee ecosystem. So depending on the decision, it really dictated who was going to be involved in that process. But ultimately, some of the examples that we had to deal with on a regular basis were just decisions around safety and sanitation and ways that we could really start making the shopping experience as safe as possible given the current situation. So whether that be face masks or plastic barriers or hand sanitation or hand sanitizer and different tools and resources to give our stores the knowledge that they needed to really run their stores on a daily basis to make it safe, not only for our customers, but for themselves.
Did you see at the start of the pandemic, and it might have eased over the months, but did you see an initial peak as many grocery stores saw when there was kind of that panic buying? Did that kind of transpire at Hy-Vee, and kind of how did you deal with that?
Yep. So the month of March was really that stock up buying, that time where customers were really, didn't know what was going to happen, didn't know what was going to transpire with the pandemic. So we really did see unprecedented levels of buying, in mass quantities, and obviously had the same challenges as every other retailer with certain categories, whether it be paper or cleaning supplies, certain food staples and shelf stable items and things like that. So definitely had that same experience as other retailers throughout the country.
And then one of the steps that Hy-Vee has taken, as you spoke to the efforts to, employee and customer safety being paramount in every decision you're making, is you've recently partnered with Retail Zipline and have rolled out its in-store operations and communications platform. Do you want to tell us a little bit about why Hy-Vee was interested in that platform and how it's being used across the company's stores?
Sure. So with Hy-Vee operating in 8 states and 265 different locations, we have over 86,000 employees. And ultimately, we were looking for a way to communicate with those frontline employees as easily and as efficiently as possible. So we've had solutions in the past that aren't as real time. And so really trying to come up with a way that our executive leadership team could communicate with those employees and let them know kind of the current state of the union and share with them our thoughts and feelings as it related to kind of the ongoing situation unfolded. We really looked for a partner and a tool so that we can enable that on a regular basis and on a real-time basis. And so we had evaluated several different options and several different companies that provide similar tools, but ultimately landed on Retail Zipline, which had a very strong focus in retail in general. So grocery retail is a new area for them, and so it's been fun and exciting to partner with them in this space as they look to kind of carve out and make different ideas and solutions within their platform that can be more grocery specific, but ultimately not only enabling messaging from our senior leadership team, but then also giving our store directors and our teams and our supervisors within different departments the ability to start communicating real time with our employees in all of their different areas and different departments. So it's created a communication stream that hasn't ever existed before, because not only can our stores hear the messages, but they can also respond back. So we can set it up in a way that we can communicate it in a task-based manner. So we can communicate a video or a message or an email, as an example, that then carves out different tasks. The stores can respond back with what they're doing to address said tasks. So it's really kind of opened up that two-way communication in a way that we've never had before.
Yeah, and I realize this is a rather new partnership, new relationship, and that you've kind of entered with Zipline. But if you're going to look at some of the business benefits that you might have targeted, you might have already seen some of this benefit in working with the platform. What would those be? It sounds like efficiency in terms of communication with staff, and something might free, in terms of task management, maybe even training. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the goals that you have for the relationship?
Yeah, I think some of the things, or some of the biggest benefits I see, is that there's so many different options. So depending on the situation and depending on the team, they can really customize that communication flow to work for how they want it to work. So we have several departments that are now sending down training videos, how-to videos. So our food service teams, for example, which I mentioned earlier, really sending them, step-by-step information on how to, maybe prepare a recipe, as something as simple as that. And now that information is at their fingertips instead of having to leave the kitchen and go watch that video elsewhere. So it's really given us the ability to kind of have all sorts of different use cases for it. So Food safety is another one that comes top of mind. So oftentimes in the grocery space, there might be some communication about different products or different information that we need to get out to the stores ASAP. And this tool has allowed us to not only communicate that information right away, but also provide that audit trail and let stores provide back or document when and how they've taken care of maybe that potential, product recall if it's coming down from a manufacturer or other places.
So one of the things that we've seen, a trend that's emerged from the the pandemic, and we've seen specific to retail, is kind of the boom that's happening in online grocery. And this was kind of a trend that had been growing for a few years, but really it's been accelerated in the last 3-4 months. One, kind of tell us a little bit about the state of the digital business at Hy-Vee, and how it's potentially been impacted by the pandemic over the last few months.
Sure. So our Aisles online e-commerce business has certainly seen some changes as a result of the pandemic. So our sales levels have increased drastically. They spiked significantly in the April timeframe, and they've kind of trending the same as the rest of the country as far as coming down a little bit, but certainly not back to pre-COVID levels. And we would expect them to stay at that level and also increase, especially as the pandemic continues, and the desire for contactless shopping is becoming greater. So ultimately, we've definitely seen a spike. And I would say, the way we talk about it here is I think that the situation has essentially accelerated e-commerce and grocery shopping online by several years. So I think that we've basically catapulted into, call it 3 or 5 years from levels of where we would expect now today. So really taking that opportunity and trying to then optimize it and make it as safe and contactless for our customers as possible. So really looking at ways to optimize that curbside experience from a contactless perspective and give our customers truly all of the same offerings that we would have in store online as well. So definitely in a position to continue seeing that trajectory and that growth in the e-commerce space.
Yes, that's a good kind of segue into my final question, Jessica, in terms of, looking forward. And you mentioned that, consumer expectations, their preferences may have shifted. And, we don't know if they're going to return, in a post-COVID environment, whether they're going to go back to shopping the way they once did, or it's just fundamentally altered the way they're thinking about and going about shopping. So just with that in mind and looking ahead, what is Hy-Vee doing to integrate its online and offline businesses to provide that kind of seamless experience no matter what consumers are doing? You mentioned curbside pickup. I want to talk a little bit about that and some of the other things that are necessary to offer that convenience to shoppers no matter which channel they choose.
Sure. So a lot of that, we're trying to stitch that all together with our digital properties. So creating mobile app and communication tools that basically are going to benefit our customers both in store and online. So depending on whatever avenue they choose, whether it be online or if they choose to shop in store today, they'll have that same information, the same deals and the same offerings and the same specialized, personalized communication is happening regardless of if they're an in-store shopper or if they're an online shopper. So to me, that's kind of the best way, is to kind of give the customers the tool and the resources that are going to be the same regardless of what channel they choose to shop that given day.
Great. Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank Jessica Ringena, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer at Hy-Vee, for joining me today. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcasts for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and Stitcher. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.